How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Blood, Love, Ghost, and a Deadly Spell. This is a new standalone anthology book written and drawn by Damian Connelly. And overall, when I saw this sitting on the store shelves, I couldn't help but pick it up. I'm a big fan of anthology horror, Tales from the Crypt. Nowadays you have Shudder magazine and Vampirus Carmilla putting out cool stuff all the time. You tell me there's an anthology horror comic book out there, I'll probably pick it up. It's got a pretty sweet cover, and it's also pretty thick. It's on that line where it's a little thicker than a single issue, but not quite a graphic novel. I guess we call these mini graphic novels. I don't know, but this is something that as soon as I saw it, I was excited and had to pick it up. And I guess overall it's okay. It's something that on paper I should like, but reading through it, I just wish it was a little better. And I guess first we'll talk about the tone. This is a very serious horror comic, and in turn, because it's serious, you take it more serious, and it doesn't always work the best, This has some story and plot elements in here that I'm like, if there was just an ounce of humor, it would be fun, Like, there's a few stories that I'm like, if this was in the Creepshow comic, yeah, I would love it. But here it's just played so seriously, and when it gets kinda stupid, it just doesn't work. And it's also pretty R-rated. And don't get me wrong, I like when you try to push the edge and you try to do more. I like when things aren't held back by corporations or censorship boards or anything like that. And I would like to see more stuff that's not censored. But that being said, I think the line between boundary pushing and just doing whatever, I think the line is, when do I start groaning? And there were a lot of stuff in here that I found myself going, oh really, we're doing that? So that combined with some stuff that was just stupid, combined with a lot of character choices that I was just like, don't do that, that's dumb. And then I guess I do have to talk about the art. The art is cool looking, and if I saw it on like an album cover, I would say that's cool art. But when you're talking sequential art and you're trying to tell a story, there was just several times in this book where I couldn't tell from the art what was going on, and you find yourself just reading through the text blocks and glancing occasionally at the art. Which I think might have been the point, because there's times when there's panel upon panel worth of text combined with one panel. So it'd talk about all these stuff that happened in the text and then just give you one image to go along with it. And I'm like, this really is more a story with some illustration than it is a comic, and you don't really get a sense of scene because, it is like short little horror story with art that veers a little too into the abstract. There's several times, again, not just with showing you action and setting the scene, but also just visually, what am I looking at? There's several panels in here where I think that's a person. I'm not sure what is that. And I think I realized, I think my line is 30 Days of Night. That got pretty abstract, but that was because you're in the cold snow. I think if you go more abstract than 30 Days a Night, it's just gonna be hard to follow. And I do want to say, though, the art does look nice. I do like it. It's just quite often I didn't know what was going on. Anyway, though, if you guys want to see a little more of this comic, I'll show you guys a little bit of each story, and I'll say my piece on each one, do little mini reviews, and I'll show you guys just a little bit of the artwork, but no major spoilers. Anyway, without further ado, if you want a closer look at this magazine, let's switch to the close-up camera. Alright, here we are inside the castle, taking a closer look at Blood, Love, Ghost, and a Deadly Spell, which this is a 4-part anthology plus the illustrated poem at the beginning, so yeah, each one of those does describe a story. That being said, though, not in that order. I think Blood is the first one, I think Ghost is the second one, Deadly Spell I believe is the third, and then Love is the fourth. So they're a little out of order. But anyway, we get a new collection from Damian Connelly, the Alien Books logo, and then this nice haunted house. And then above that, probably what got me to buy it is a 6 skeleton here. I mean, I probably would have bought an anthology horror comic anyway, but this cool visual of the vampire lady with the red and the 2 red dots and then the skeleton in her hair. I mean, that's a cool cover with the haunted house and the moon and everything. Super good and classic. We can see from the spine that it's thick enough to have the writing, that this is bigger. You know, the mini graphic novel, thicker single issue length. This is about the length of those DC Black Label books. We get some more cool art on the back. To be honest, the description is a little bit cheesy, you know. With this new, dark, weird, and atmospheric anthology of horror comics from prolific mind of Damian Connelly, you might get answers to all questions. Or none. Or none. Okay. But it talks about how there's 4 self-contained anthology horror stories and an illustrated poem. That's this little introductory piece. And then we get to the bottom. Mature readers. Yeah, definitely can agree on that. $9.99 US 00111. And I got cover A, which was apparently done by Damian Connelly himself. I didn't get a chance to look at the other covers. I wonder how they came out. But anyway, crack it open. We see the credit line, script and art by Damian Connelly, and then we get right into the stories. Now, I'll cover all the stories. I won't do any major spoilers, but I'll go in enough to take a little bit of a look around. That being said, there's a lot of the art in here that I can't show you, and I don't want to cover too much anyway. You know, I just want a little peek. But anyway, no major spoilers. Let's take a look first at the illustrated poem, and it talks about how there's like this abandoned mansion and this guy wants you to stay with him and he's cursed or something. It's just a couple pages. We get like an old Greek statue of the thinker there. He's sitting down. We get this guy with the cool creepy eyes. It's an okay atmospheric introduction. And then we get Helena as the first story. And each one of the stories is going to have its own song quote that I guess kind of inspired it. And we get Helena, same as the story's name, by My Chemical Romance as the beginning. Anyway, we get this cool city, and this guy's talking about how he's living with his grandma and just kind of hoping someone cool moves in. And we get, like, here's a look at one of the more straightforward panels in this scene where the grandma's asking for cigarettes. And then we get where the grandma wants to paint the house and he insists on doing it himself because of teenage pride. And he cuts himself because he tried to open the paint can with a freaking butcher's knife. You know how I said earlier that there's some questionable decisions? That isn't even the worst of it. But for real, get those little paint opener things. I think they give them out for free. They do wonders. Anyway, he cuts himself, and after that, he finds himself wandering into the hallway where the neighbor girl meets him and starts to suck his blood. It turns out there's a vampire living a few doors down, and he'll talk about how pleasurable the experience is and how it made him feel in great details, and how a teen might react to that memory, let's say. Yeah, we get a few scenes. There's a there's a white ink splash here and on a couple pages over, and I think we all know what that's supposed to be. But we do get this really cool monster face, which I do like that as the art. But you see how on this page you get like the monster face and then like an abstract close-up of the lips and then a whole, couple blocks of text. And that's basically how the art kind of plays out for this. More examples of the art later on, obviously. But he talks about how eventually the grandma decides to move out, so he has to go with her. But when the grandma dies, he moves back, and he talks about how his life was unfulfilled, and he can't stop thinking about the vampire next door. And it's okay, it's kind of the hard thing to get over. They do talk about how it's kind of like drugs and, addiction makes you make bad decisions. At the same time, it's like, dude, don't go back to the vampire. And whatever, it's a short story. It has a decent little twisty ending, and it's fine. But anyway, after that, we get the story Bathtub. And in Bathtub, we have the Drowning Man from The Cure as our source of inspiration. And we get this guy, he moves to a city, and he's like, my neighbors are weirdos, but not as weird as I am. Compared to me, they're normal. And then he tells a story about he gets home, and he's pleasuring himself in the bathtub, and he sticks his head underwater as a form of autoerotic asphyxiation when suddenly he feels a spirit holding him down and pleasuring himself for him. And he talks about, can he escape the bathroom? Can he leave because the ghost is physically holding him back? But then can he also leave just, again, much like the first one, because of the pleasure and the temptation? And there's also a reason I'm not showing you more pages of art from here, because, again, the art gets so abstract and it's hard to stare at it and figure out, like, is that something YouTube will get mad at me for? It's an okay story, but again, another case of, dude, just get out of there. And also, how much detail do we really need? Whatever. It's so-so. The first one, that whole vampire temptation thing, that's something we've seen before, and it's told all right with the coming back home element. Here, I think the second one is just too similar to the first, and it's not as good. I think maybe we should have put that one at the back of the book so that there's more page distance between them. Whatever. And then we have the next story, When We Got Together and Destroyed the World. And in this story, we have 9 Inch Nails and their song, The Day the World Went Away. And this girl's talking about how she has this book that she found with magic spells. And here's part of that tone I was talking about. She doesn't believe the magic spells work, so she gets her cat there, and she does a magic spell to make animals talk, and the cat starts talking to her. I mean, that's silly. If this was a Creepshow comic, I'd absolutely love it. But here it plays it off as so serious, and I won't spoil it out, but how the cat's plot played out had me absolutely laughing. But also, it's like you have this girl and her cat's talking to her, and this is the one page we get. I would love to see, I don't think... Yeah, I would love to see a speech bubble come out of the cat's mouth and have him go, we should destroy the world. That would be super fun. But yeah, it's like, this should have been a scene, and instead it's a splash with a whole bunch of text. But anyway, she says the cat would totally love to destroy the world, and she would too. It's okay for the cat to think that, because cats love to destroy things, but... Girl, you're a human. Don't be so edgy. But there just so happens to be a spell to destroy the whole world, and her friends are going to go and do that because the world's so bad. You do get, right, if you kill almost 8 billion people, that you're worse than anyone who's ever lived, right? Like, Like, you can't complain about bad people if you kill 8 billion of them. But anyway, they decide to do that, and to their surprise, the spell actually works, and they're the last people in the whole world. And we do get, again, that whole showing you one panel rather than a whole bunch of stuff, you know. We spent days searching through places, checking to see the whole world had truly disappeared. That could be some great scenes, but instead we just get a few buildings with a cat's eye over it. I mean, good art, but at the same time, you know, it's like, I would love if there were actual scenes in this book. But yeah, needless to say, destroying the world isn't a good idea. And some people will behave in sad but ultimately predictable ways. And, yeah, I don't know. It's just a story where, again, like the past two, I can't help but read it and go, idiots, idiots, idiots. Moral of the story, though, don't destroy the world. Anyway, moving on to One Night. And One Night is inspired by Bauhaus, The Passion of Lovers. And you get this story where this girl is talking about, hey, maybe I'll abandon this whole vampirism thing and rip my fangs out and be with you, but could you ever love me and stuff. And to be honest, when I flipped to the back, I'd forgotten about that whole opening segment, and I thought this might be the illustrated poem, because it talks about, you know, it's basically this idea and a series of photos behind it. But no, the beginning was the illustrated poem. This is just more of a story, more of a poem than a story. But anyway, like here they talk about, oh, we'll listen to Hedwig and stuff. And then we get, you know, like Hedwig's all abstract. There's abstract vampire fangs. Then we get like this, which is a portrait of one of the characters that is almost lost in shadows. And then we devolve into scribbles down here. But it's just basically with this last one, it's like, hey, maybe I'll stop being a vampire someday, and that's about the gist of it. Again, more of an illustrated poem than a full-out narrative. There's, you know, some decent art, you know, it can go from sketchy to photorealistic, and again, I think the art's cool, it's just hard to really convey a sense of scenes, and in turn, outside of the dialogue, you don't even really get a sense of character, except for, you know, the main character through the narration, you know, because we don't have scenes, we can't meet side characters as well, and the whole thing is just hard to get into the world. I mean, the art looks cool, but it feels like a short poetry book that just so happens to have narration, I mean, that just so happens to have illustration with it, and it doesn't really feel like a comic, and I think some people may dig it, especially, you know, there's music lyrics with these, so you can tell that they were kind of inspired by more abstract forms, but I really wish we could hold a scene and hold a narrative a little better. And again, with this book, there's so many cases of, don't do that, don't go back to the vampire, don't go back to the ghost, don't destroy the world, and you do get just kind of frustrated with these characters, and there's some silly moments, some overly explicit moments, and I'm like, you know, it kind of feels at times like this is A24 trying to do a remake of a trauma film, which, that would be interesting. But yeah, it gets silly, and it has no clue how silly it's being. Overall, not the best, and that's kind of sad to say, because I do love anthology horror, and I do think the art was cool at places. It's just, I wish it had more sense of narrative and more structure and stuff. Then again, you know, you can do whatever you want. It's just how will the audience feel walking away from it. But I am curious if you guys did really like this or not. So definitely let me know what you guys thought of it. Maybe I am the outlier. Maybe everyone else thinks this is cool but me. I think is okay, just kind of silly. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. How about my Anthology Horror Comics playlist, where you can see me talk about a bunch of other cool Anthology Horror comics, like The Creeps and Vampiris Carmilla. Well, The Creeps is Shudder now. Some other black and white anthology horror. Those are very classically styled. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.